When I was 19 years old, I took a job working the night shift at a 7-Eleven. It wasn't my first choice, but I needed the extra money to make ends meet while I was in college. The clock had just struck midnight, and the last customer in my line had left. I sighed with relief, glad to be alone in the dimly lit store for a few minutes. The usual hum of the coolers and the occasional creaking of the door filled the air, creating a dull background noise. I was bent over the counter, restocking candy bars, and then I heard a faint whisper from the back of the store. I straightened up, my heart pounding, and glanced around. The store was empty, and the door remained closed. I chalked it up to my imagination playing tricks on me and went back to my task. But then, it came again. The whispering, the sound of hushed voices that didn't belong. I turned to face the source, and my eyes were drawn to the magazine rack. The magazines seemed to move on their own, shuffling and rustling as if an invisible hand was flipping through them. I felt a chill run down my spine, and I called out, "Is someone there?" No response. I approached the magazine rack, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I was alone in the store, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent as I got closer. "Help us." The voice was faint, but there was no denying it. It was coming from the magazine rack. I hesitated for a moment, my curiosity battling my fear. With trembling hands, I reached out to touch the magazines, and that's when it happened. The magazines flew off the rack, pages flipping wildly through the air. I stumbled back, my heart racing as I watched the chaos unfold. It was as if an invisible force was wreaking havoc in the store. The lights overhead flickered, casting eerie, dancing shadows on the floor. The whispers grew louder, and I could hear more voices now, a creepy mixture of desperate pleas and mournful cries. I was surrounded by the sound of the unseen. "Help us! Please, don't leave." The air grew heavy, and I knew I had to leave. Panic seized me as I fumbled for the store's phone, ready to dial 911, but the line was dead. There was no dial tone even after trying to get one several times. The voices in the store grew louder, more insistent, and I knew I had to get out of there. I rushed to the door, my fingers fumbling with the lock. It refused to budge, as if the door had been sealed shut from the outside. I pounded on the glass, screaming for help, but my voice was drowned out by the chorus of voices that echoed through the store. The lights overhead flickered and died, plunging the store into darkness. I was trapped in the pitch-black void, surrounded by the voices, the whispers, the unseen. I felt hands, cold and clammy, grasp my shoulders, and I recoiled in terror. I struggled, trying to break free, but the grip was relentless. The voices grew louder, more desperate as they closed in on me. "Help us. Please, don't leave." The grip of their cold hands felt like a vice, and I was consumed by fear. I couldn't see what was holding me, but I could feel it, the presence, the malevolence. And then, as suddenly as it had all begun, the lights flickered back to life, and the hands released me. I stumbled back, gasping for breath, my heart racing. The store was empty, the magazines were back on the rack, and the whispers had vanished. It was as if nothing had ever happened, as if I had been caught in some horrific nightmare. I wasted no time. I ran to the door and threw it open, gasping for the fresh night air. The street outside was empty, the world quiet and still. I stood there shaking, trying to make sense of the inexplicable horrors I had just experienced. I quit my job at the 7-Eleven that very night, vowing never to set foot in the store again. I couldn't explain what had happened, and I didn't want to. The night shift had turned into a living nightmare, a twisted realm of darkness and whispers that defied all reason. To this day, I can't enter a convenience store without a shiver of fear. The ordinary, mundane places we take for granted can hide secrets that are beyond our comprehension. The night shift at the 7-Eleven will forever be a chilling reminder that the darkness can hold terrors that defy explanation. The night was hot and stifling, urging me to seek relief in the cool embrace of the lake. The moon hung high in the sky, casting an ethereal glow upon the water's surface. The thought of an exhilarating midnight swim beckoned me, promising a refreshing respite from the summer heat. Little did I know that the lake held secrets far darker and more sinister than I could ever imagine. I made my way to the shore, the sand cool beneath my feet. The lake stretched out before me, its vast expanse shimmering in the moonlight. The air was heavy with anticipation as I waded into the water, the ripples dissipating around me. Excitement coursed through my veins as I dove beneath the surface, the cool water enveloping me like a second skin. For a moment, all was calm and peaceful. The rhythmic sound of my own breathing mingled with the distant lapping of the waves. But as I ventured farther into the depths, a sense of unease washed over me. The water turned murky, obscuring my vision and stirring a primal fear within. I pushed aside the growing anxiety, determined to enjoy my midnight swim. But then, a whisper echoed through the water, an otherworldly voice that sent a chill down my spine. My heart raced as I searched for the source, but there was nothing to be seen, just the black expanse of the lake, stretching out in every direction. A sudden tug at my ankle startled me, and I kicked furiously, struggling to break free. Panic seized me as I realized that something sinister lurked beneath the surface, its grip tightening around my leg. With a surge of adrenaline, I managed to wrench myself free and swam back towards the shore, gasping for breath. I stumbled out of the water, my heart pounding in my chest. Looking back at the lake, I saw nothing but calm water, as if nothing had happened. Doubt gnawed at me. Had it all been a figment of my imagination? A trick of the mind brought on by the darkness? But as I peered into the depths once more, the surface rippled, and a grotesque figure emerged. A creature with pallid skin and vacant eyes. Its elongated limbs reached out towards me, beckoning me to return to the water's embrace. The creature's voice echoed in my mind, promising secrets and pleasures unknown. Terror surged through me, and I turned to flee, stumbling over the sand in my haste. But the lake seemed to stretch out, its shoreline moving farther away with each step. I was trapped, caught in a nightmarish cycle that defied escape. Panic and desperation fueled my movements as I ran along the shore, praying for salvation. In a last-ditch effort to break free, I dove back into the water, hoping that perhaps by embracing the depths, I could find an exit from this waking nightmare. But as I submerged myself once again, the world around me transformed. An underwater realm of darkness and despair. The lake's true nature was revealed, a malevolent entity that feasted on lost souls. I thrashed against the currents, fighting against the suffocating grip of the lake. Shadows danced and twisted in the water, grotesque figures swirling in a macabre ballet. The voices of the lost echoed through the depths, their agonized cries a haunting melody that reverberated through my very being. Exhausted and disoriented, I felt my strength wane. My body grew numb, and darkness crept into the corners of my vision. I succumbed to the suffocating embrace of the lake, my consciousness slipping away as the water consumed me. When I awoke, I found myself lying on the shore, gasping for breath. The moon had shifted, casting long shadows across the water. I stumbled to my feet, my body weary and battered. The lake's surface remained calm, devoid of the horrors that had plagued me moments before. As I walked away from the lake, the memories of that night etched themselves into my mind, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. The lake had shown me its true nature, a malevolent force that lures unsuspecting victims into its depths. And I, dear reader, survived to share this cautionary tale. Beware the allure of the lake at night, for its depths hold secrets far more terrifying than you can ever fathom. I never should have agreed to go on that hiking trip with my friends. What started as an exciting adventure in the remote woods of the Pacific Northwest turned into a nightmare I can't escape. I need to share this story as a warning, because something truly evil lurks in those dark woods. It was a crisp autumn morning when we embarked on our journey. My friends, Mark, Sarah, and Mike and I, had been planning this trip for months. We were avid hikers, and this remote wilderness was the perfect escape from the stresses of our everyday lives. The forest seemed idyllic, with towering trees and a thick carpet of fallen leaves that crunched beneath our boots. The scent of pine filled the air, and for a while, everything was perfect. We hiked deeper into the woods, our laughter and chatter echoing through the trees. But as the day wore on, something strange began to happen. The forest felt different, like it was closing in on us. The once vibrant foliage turned ominously dark, and the atmosphere grew heavy with an unsettling tension. Sarah was the first to notice it. She stopped and turned to us, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you guys feel that too? It's like the woods are watching us." I laughed nervously, dismissing her words as paranoia. But the unease in the air was undeniable. The sunlight that had filtered through the leaves now seemed to wane, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. As we continued, the trees closed in even more, their branches intertwining overhead, forming a natural canopy. The once clear trail became obscured by creeping vines and overgrown bushes, and it felt like we were walking through a labyrinth of thorns and brambles. Panic started to claw at my insides, but I kept it to myself. We set up camp near a small meandering stream, and I could tell that my friends were equally unsettled. The tension was palpable, and even Mike, usually the most optimistic of the group, was visibly distressed. That night, as we gathered around the campfire, the atmosphere grew even darker. An unnatural chill settled over us, and the flames danced with an eerie intensity, casting grotesque shadows on the surrounding trees. We whispered about the bizarre occurrences, but no one had an explanation. It was as though the forest itself had come alive, a malevolent presence that refused to be ignored. Sometime after midnight, I awoke to the sound of footsteps, crunching leaves just beyond the glow of the campfire. I sat up, heart pounding, and strained to listen. It sounded like someone or something was circling our campsite, moving closer with each passing second. My mind raced, and I gently shook Mark awake. He listened, and we exchanged terrified glances. Sarah and Mike were still asleep, completely oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. Mark and I decided to investigate, fearing that we were not alone in this remote wilderness. With flashlights in hand, we crept toward the source of the noise. The forest was silent, save for the faint sound of our footsteps. As we reached the edge of the campfire's glow, we saw a figure standing in the shadows, partially hidden behind a tree. My heart stopped. It was a man, but there was something terribly wrong with him. His skin was ashen, and his eyes were completely black. He stood unnaturally still, like a statue carved from the darkest nightmares. Mark and I exchanged another glance, unable to tear our gaze from this horrifying apparition. Then, with a sudden and unnatural speed, the man darted forward, his limbs contorting in an inhuman way. Mark and I screamed and ran back to the campsite. We woke Sarah and Mike, frantic and terrified, and told them what we had seen. They were skeptical at first, but the fear in our eyes was enough to convince them. We packed up our gear in a frenzy, our minds racing with thoughts of escape. But as we fled the campsite, we realized that the forest had other plans. The once clear path had vanished, replaced by a twisted maze of thorns and vines. It was as if the woods themselves had conspired against us. The malevolent presence in the forest seemed to grow stronger, and we felt as though we were being herded deeper into its dark heart. The shadowy figure with the black eyes continued to pursue us, his grotesque form appearing at the edge of our vision. As we stumbled through the dark and twisted forest, terror and exhaustion took hold. Sarah's screams echoed through the trees as we realized that we were trapped, and there was no way out. That was the last time I hung out with my friends. I'm writing this now, grateful that we managed to navigate through the dense forest and find our way back to safety. While the experience left us shaken and bewildered, we did eventually escape the eerie woods. Please, if you ever venture into the remote woods of the Pacific Northwest, be prepared for the unexpected challenges nature can present. It's a place of both beauty and potential hazards, and our ordeal serves as a reminder to be well prepared and cautious when exploring the wilderness. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.